Welcome back to GoPowerCat.com's Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. Well, we're halfway through our Power Chat with Kansas State's new football coach, and here is part 2 of the Chris Klieman Power Chat. Welcome back to the Power Chat here in the Go PowerCat studios, the WTC gig-powered studios, and we're with Kansas State football coach Chris Klieman. Long first half of the chat, though. We got you all the way up to the hiring process, and again, you're in the playoffs, preparing your own team for bigger things, and Gene Taylor has advanced through his career from North Dakota State to being a deputy AD at Iowa, and now at Kansas State, and he comes calling, but this wasn't as done as a lot of people assumed. This was a legitimate process that he kind of put you through the ringer on, didn't he?
Well, and I was glad he did, and I think that was the way that it was going to be and should have been, but I think it started with when Coach announced he was retiring. Everybody in North Dakota State still adores, loves Gene, and knew that he hired me, and so I think the speculation started pretty quickly, and I remember, I think that was on a Sunday, and then we had our team meeting on a Monday prior to the next playoff game, and I think it was a quarterfinal game, and I just told the guys, I said, guys, I'm going to be really transparent with you. Gene Taylor is the athletic director at Kansas State. Coach Snyder just retired. My name's going to get brought up, I believe. I don't know if I'll get an interview. I don't know what'll happen, but I just want you guys to be aware that my focus is going to be on us continuing this drive to win another national championship. But if he does call, I'm going to listen. And I talked to the leadership council, our captains, and they're like, Coach, you're crazy if you don't listen. It's a Big 12 job. You've put yourself in position to at least be considered for it, and we appreciate you letting us know. But we'll handle things. We had 24 seniors. We had a really good football team, but we understand, and I think that helped the process. And then I think Gene's people contacted our people, my people, a couple days before. We played a playoff game and kind of set in motion a time for us to interview.
Is it a challenge to be invested in two different things like that at the same time?
Absolutely. Really challenging. It kind of goes against what my feelings are of be where your feet are. My feet were really with the North Dakota State kids, because that's what I knew, and that's where I had a job, and that's where my goal was to win another national championship with these guys, but I also had really good people surrounding me saying, Coach, you can do both now. Do what you have to do, preparing every week or preparing each day for a practice, and then when you go home late at night, just put some of your thoughts down on paper so that you put your best foot forward when you have the opportunity to interview. But your resume can speak for itself too. You just need to expand upon it with the success we've had in how you're going to do this at the Power 5 level.
So Gene Taylor is running a high-profile coaching search at the FBS level. Did he bring you into Manhattan, or did you meet on neutral ground, or did you go to Fargo?
Yeah, we met on neutral ground, and it was, we were trying to find a great place to meet, which was hard because I couldn't be away for more than 4 or 5 hours because we were practicing or meeting every day, and I never was going to not be around that football team at a practice. And somebody say, well, why isn't he here? And Gene knew that too. That was not going to be fair. And so, but the Fargo media is pretty persistent as well of trying to find out, is Gene coming to town, or are you leaving town? And so they had, some jet centers staked out and stuff, and people around the office in the morning to see if I'd come in. It was kind of surreal, to be honest with you, that I'd come in the office and there'd be camera trucks and stuff like, okay, you arrived at work today and things. And so it was really interesting. And so we decided to meet at my house. And so we came over and met at my house and met in the morning and spent, I would say 3 hours, 4 hours, somewhere in there with Gene and Jill and Kenny, and kind of laid my vision and laid my plan out. And once I did that, they jumped in their car and headed out of town to where they flew out of, and I jumped in my car and went right back by noon or so to continue on getting ready for the next practice.
It's funny. We as members of media were doing the same thing down here, tracking where Gene's at and staking out the airport to see where he's flying to and from. And
really fascinates me how you guys are all in sync on this stuff. It really does. And I understand why, but it's just interesting how it is a big deal no matter where you're at. I mean, whether it's North Dakota State, Kansas State, any other Division I schools, how you guys want to be on top of making sure you don't miss a trick, and we're trying to slide around and see if we can beat the system a little bit.
My latest thing I attempted to use, and they outsmarted me or were very cautious, is if you have the Snapchat at, it's possible it will track you and your followers can see you. So I'm tracking the location of Ryan Lackey and Kenny Lanou as best I can, and they every time I did it, they were at home. They were pretty good. So it's technology and flight aware and all of that is just a fascinating process. And it came down. It was a legitimate race. Kenny Lanou, Jill Shields, Gene Taylor sit down and talk about this, and Neil Brown is a very high-profile guy that is also in the running. I think he ended up as a perfect fit for him at West Virginia, and Gene makes the call. You're at practice. Now, I'm surprised you had your phone, but you probably had it because might be coming.
Well, I knew that somebody could be calling, whether it was my representation or I didn't know Gene was going to be calling and being live on air. I did
That's
not know.
That's a whole new world.
That I did not know at all, and I think he caught me one time and said, "Coach, we're live right now." I'm like, okay, but no, I typically wouldn't have my phone at practice, but no, it was a pretty surreal moment, and it was early in practice because we were in finals week, so we didn't practice until really late that afternoon. So pretty cool moment.
I watch your language here. So did you tell the kids right away?
No, I waited till the end of
practice.
Yeah. There was a couple of players that I had spoken with probably right before meetings. One was Easton Stick, our quarterback, and one was Darius Shepard, two kids that actually visited us just recently here in Manhattan and said, guys, I think this is going to happen. And they both gave me a hug and were pretty excited for me. And I said, I'll know for sure by the end of the day, but I think it's going to happen. And so when I could share it with two guys that I recruited both of them, been around both of them for a long time, it was really close with them on a personal and professional relationship. That was pretty cool to share with those two.
And then how many days was it between that phone call and coming to Manhattan?
Well, I think I came the next day for a press conference, but once again, I know we had practice the next day, so I think that was maybe Monday. The days run together, and then Tuesday we had practice, and I flew out Tuesday night, but I was back by Wednesday at noon because we had practice Wednesday afternoon because, oh, by the way, we were just playing our biggest rival on Friday for the semifinals. That after all that stuff transpired, we could not lose that football game for a number of reasons.
No, that would have sucked.
That would have been bad. It would have been. I probably wouldn't have gotten out of Fargo alive had we lost that one. So.
And again, in the world that we live and how things have changed, you don't just get on a plane to come to Manhattan. The plane includes a photographer and a videographer, and so you're on camera the whole time. This was the social media hire.
Yeah, it really was. And I kind of anticipated it would be something like that. It was probably bigger than even I imagined, but Kenny and his crew did a phenomenal job, and it was it was really important for me to have my family, not just my wife, but my 3 children as well. And my son's in the middle of finals week and things, but it was really important to have my family along for that plane trip.
And that plane comes in and you see the stadium below. What were you thinking right then?
It was one of those surreal moments. You kind of like, wow, this is really happening. And it was pretty neat, something I'll always remember.
So you go to the press conference, formality, the jersey and all that, but then you get to meet with the team.
Yep.
How did that go? I mean,
I thought it went well. I was just trying to be as real as I could with those guys. I knew it was going to be a short meeting. I knew some of those kids had finals, some of them were done, but they were leaving that night or the next morning and getting out. So, and it was late when I met with them. Not even, maybe it was 10 o'clock or something. And so I just wanted to just kind of give them a quick synopsis of where I'd been and what my plan was and what our vision was together to keep this train moving. But I also shared with them, guys, I have to go back and finish a job, which I think is a unique thing. Fortunately, those guys were going home for some Christmas break. That they were okay with me. Okay, go finish your job with these guys. And a number of we've recruited Kansas City really well at North Dakota State. Yeah. So a number of the Kansas City guys knew each other from both teams. I know there was phone calls and text messages and stuff back and forth. What are we getting ourselves into? To what's Coach like? To whatever it may be. So, but it was a great first quick meeting. But I also knew I wasn't going to see most of these guys until middle of January because school started so late here for the second semester.
But you knew Skylar Thompson. You guys had recruited him. That had to be comforting to know not just who your quarterback was, but he fit what you wanted to do.
Yeah, we were one of his first offers, I know.
Right.
I'd visit with him on the phone one time in May when we had that opportunity to utilize a phone call and offered him a scholarship, and loved the way he played and loved the way he carried himself and all the things you look for intangibly with a quarterback. And I remember then maybe 3 or 4 weeks later or something, he called me back to say, Coach, I've decided to go to Kansas State. Totally understood, but it was neat to see how that came full circle.
You knew Skylar's game. You knew what he was about. How did he fit into that line of quarterbacks, the Carson Wentz, the Easton Stick? Did he kind of follow that ability to throw, ability to move a little bit?
Yeah, but we were still learning about him too. But from his high school tape that I recalled, yeah, he did. He fit into, not only the physical tools, but all the intangibles, and a tremendous athlete, and could do a number of things, and the fact that I think he had natural leadership qualities, and that's what we're all looking for, is not just the physical tools, but the intangibles and the mental capacity to handle the position of quarterback.
So you go back, you got South Dakota State, and then you make it to the finals with Eastern Washington. I would guess that those ratings are pretty good because every K-State fan tuned in to watch. And during all this, you're starting to try to put together a staff. And you started with Hank Jacobs, who came down with you and is kind of your right-hand guy. Yep. His desk's right outside your office. What is it about Hank that you knew you wanted him there?
Simple, loyalty, and somebody that I think is up and coming in the profession. Yeah. I hired him. He was a graduate assistant, a student assistant when I first got there in 2011. Then moved to a graduate assistant role, and then was able to hire him as a part-time employee in like my first year in 2014. And then we were able to. He did such a good job. That the administration at NDSU wanted to hire him full-time. And so then we kept putting on more responsibilities on him in 15, in 16, in 17, and in 18. And so he was with me through that whole time as a head coach. And you always want to have somebody with you that knows you, that that knows, okay, coach is in a bad mood today, here's how to handle him, or coach is in a great mood, or I'm the one that has to share bad news with coach. He knows how to do those things with me, and I can vent on him, and he knows it's nothing personal at all, because I love Hank. Hank's been with me forever, and so that was a simple one for me, that I wanted to have somebody that, because we still had 3 weeks as well of a season, Hank, you need to help me do some things administratively on both ends, on the K-State end and on the North Dakota State end.
And putting together a coaching staff, a Division I, a Big 12 coaching staff. And you're on the clock. You got recruiting hanging out there. You got a lot of things going on. How daunting was that?
It was, but we had the first initial signing day the Wednesday after the South Dakota State game, and so we didn't have many people hired at that time, just a couple, and I remember going out with Taylor Bratt and with Colin Klein and Blake Seiler, and the three of us kind of went, or four of us went and saw as many kids as we could on a Saturday after the South Dakota State game, and then I was there through the signing period in Manhattan until we were able to sign some guys on that first Wednesday. And then after that is when I really started to focus, because we still had 2.5 weeks before a championship game, and I wanted to try to get a staff in place. And I knew a couple things. One, by that time, Matt Entz had been named the head coach at North Dakota State, who was our defensive coordinator there, and so I knew everybody was going to have a job. That was, it was something you always worry about as a coach. Is you're affecting families and children and stuff, and somebody was going to have a job, whether it was at North Dakota State, a great school, or coming to Kansas State, and there was a fit I had with a few guys, and for me it started with Coach Mess as the offensive coordinator, and all those things we go back and talk about with playing baseball when you're a young kid and pick up basketball games and stuff. Coach Mess was involved in all those things, and was at Northern Iowa. He was my host on a recruiting trip because he's a year older than I am. And so he was the first one that was a natural for me, and he's had coordinating experience in the Big 12. And so Courtney was the first guy that I hired from a coaching staff perspective, and then Coach Riley followed closely behind, because I've been with Riles since 2013. I was with him both as an assistant, and loved the way he coaches offensive line, and then it just started falling together.
As a defensive coach, bringing the offensive guy, Coach Snyder was the opposite. He was the offensive guy, and always wanted, he let the defensive coaches kind of take their turn. Had a pretty good run of defensive coordinators here. So now you've defined what you're going to be on both sides of the ball. Mess is with you, and he's had Big 12 experience at Iowa State. So right there, you got to feel a little more stable. Like, I know what we're going to play. I know what we need to do, and there was some advantages here. You played that semifinal on that Friday. You can't come out on Saturday, and then you got that, what I think is kind of a strange break all the way to the championship game. They almost treat it like a bowl game, which is cool, but it was kind of you go week, and then you got to pause, and you were able to use that to your advantage. You brought 4 guys from North Dakota State. What was it about those 4?
A number of things. Just some of it was, Coach Riley, Coach Mess, Coach Klieman had been with me since I started as head coach. Mess wasn't, but I'd known him forever. And then Jason Ray, who he's played in the Big 12. He played at Mizzou, coached at Oklahoma State, and we had just hired him, and I was so impressed with Jason when we hired him. That I knew if I had an opportunity, I was going to bring Jason with me, because he's just such a great person and a great football coach and mentoring young men. And so those 4 guys just kind of fit some of the spots I was looking for. And you always have, just like every coach has, a short list of guys that you've worked with, you've been associated with, you've heard about, whatever it may be. And so then I just started attacking that short list after the 4 guys that I'd spent some time with at NDSU.
Colin Klein ends up being your only carryover, as Blake Seiler did end up going to West Virginia. Colin seems to kind of fit right in with his group, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does.
He's such a good guy to start with. But his style seems to slide right in.
Yeah, and Colin could fit in with anybody. He's that type of person. But I just, when you walk in a room and Colin's there, the room lights up. I mean, he's just that kind of guy. He's got that infectious personality, tremendous man of faith, tremendous leader. What he did on the field, you can tell why he's successful as a coach is because he puts his heart and soul into it, and challenges his players to be great on and off the field. And I was able to spend a few days on the road with Colin as kind of the lead recruiter. He and Taylor were, because I was selling, my brand, but I wasn't selling Kansas State yet. I didn't know enough about the academic side of things, the facility side of things, all those things that those guys know so well. And so, just being able to sit in a prospect's home and listen to Colin and listen to Taylor Bratt and listen to Blake Seiler talk about Kansas State, I learned a ton. But the passion that Colin showed about this institution that he loves so much really made it a no-brainer for me to offer him a job.
You put together a really good staff. I mean, you had the hiccup with Blake leaving. A defensive coordinator was in and out. Luckily, he didn't buy a house. But it kind of felt like it all just ended up where it was supposed to be. You end up back with Coach Hayes, Scotty Hazelton, who, by the way, looks like the Hollywood casting version of a defensive coordinator. And it's been great for the media because we're getting some access to assistant coaches again, which Coach Snyder ended around 2004 or 5. This is a good group of guys. They're just good people.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it.
Really good people that, once again, I don't see anybody as being an ego guy. Everybody has their place. Everybody's been around the block. Our defensive staff, really seasoned guys that have been a lot of places, don't care who gets the credit. We all want to get the credit. We all are going to put equal amount of time in. We all are going to have a say. I've been in a room with Scotty, so I knew that was going to be a great fit because he wants to know what everybody's opinion is. He's not the one that's going to say, I have all the answers. I want your opinion, and I want to lean on you guys for third down stuff, for run pressures, whatever it may be. And so, having Scotty lead it and then having Joe come in that I've been around, and I know how intelligent Joe is, and Joe really has a great, sharp mind for the passing game, and then to bring Van Malone in, and Van's one of the top technicians of corners that I know, that I've been familiar with Van. He was an NDSU guy years ago, and then we interviewed Tui down at the convention, and I'd not met Tui before, but I'd heard the name enough, and he was a blast to be around, and really brings a special quality to the table of a guy that really understands the defensive tackle position. And then when Blake left, we were able to hire Buddy Wyatt, and Buddy was on our list originally. Even when we interviewed Tui, Buddy was on our list, and so it made it really easy when Blake left to call Buddy and say, okay, you ready to come? You've got a job. And Buddy and Van have been with each other, and so the familiarity on that defensive side, even though that number of us came from different spots, I think everybody's on the same page, and that's what's fun is, and I bounce around from meeting room to meeting room. I don't just sit with the defensive guys as people may think. I love to go to the offensive meeting room and give a defensive coach's perspective in there, and so I really enjoy the camaraderie and the banter back and forth, and that's what you're looking for, is great ideas on each side of the ball.
Getting ready for spring practice, got to learn who's what. You're probably watching some tape, and it's probably frantic. It's probably just, you get 15 practices, and you just kind of dive in with a new group. Can you learn much in that short a period of time?
Well, yeah, you learn a little bit about each other, and you're just trying to get to know the players, and you're wanting to instill your culture of how you want to practice. That's the biggest thing you want to do, as well as those players to learn how they're being coached. What kind of coach is Coach Riley? What kind of coach is Coach Klieman or Coach Hayes or Coach Anderson? That's what you're trying to figure out. And we're installing the basic stuff offensively and defensively, and that's the first 4 or 5 days it sometimes looked like football and sometimes it didn't look like football, and that's kind of what's to be expected. And then as it wound down in spring practice, I thought it started to look more and more like football every day, and guys started to feel more comfortable, and that's why we're so excited as we lead into fall practice, because we've just barely scratching the surface of what we're going to install, what the guys are going to pick up, what the guys are going to retain, and I look forward to a great August.
You start August 1st. You had Big 12 Media Days, as we mentioned at the top of the show, and that says football season, doesn't it? Here it is. It's ready to go. How eager are you to get these guys? As people watch this, you're on the field, but how eager are you to get them out there?
I'm really ready to get started. I know the guys are as well. They've had a really good summer with Coach Dawson and his staff training in this brutal heat we've had this summer. Now, once you get past the 4th of July, I think everybody thinks more season and less about just strength and conditioning. And so the guys are excited and chomping at the bit to continue to improve every day, and that's what we're trying to do. Is we're so far away from a finished product, and I'm excited because I think we will continue to improve throughout the season, and what we see in mid-August is not going to be as good as what we see in mid-September, and then hopefully mid-October, and that's the sign of, I think, a team that's learning the culture and learning how we're doing things.
People emphasize the differences you have with your predecessors, and there are some. You're obviously all the social media is a perfect example of that. That just didn't happen. Your availability to do things such as this, that typically didn't happen. But there's a lot of similarities here that I don't think people fully appreciate. This talk of developing players that was so successful at North Dakota State, you got to go out and identify guys that you can get that are also going to be really good football players. And maybe there's, some pretty good overlap there, and maybe not. But it's all about seeing kids for what they will be and not what they are. That's an essential ingredient to be a coach at Kansas State, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, and it's really an essential ingredient to be a coach anywhere. You have to be able to develop talent, and you realize that you could get a young player in here that's just not matured yet. His body hasn't matured yet, and that's why you got to stay the course with those kids. And unfortunately, everybody wants to play as a true freshman, and there's not always going to happen. And you have to give those kids enough encouragement to keep driving and keep striving for their perfection or their perfect person, so that they keep working hard and that they see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because it may be their second year, sometimes it may be their third year before they play. But if you continue to give them positive feedback, positive reinforcement of this is the track that you're taking right now, and you're gonna have some success at the end of that. And then there's some kids that it just falls into place right away, and they play quickly, and that's. But even the kids that play right away, you're still developing those guys every week, every month, every year, so that you can continue to get the most out of those guys.
I'm not going to get into a bunch of position by position things, because as this appears on the website, that's going on with other forms of the media. But this running back situation is very intriguing, because it was kind of a convergence of things. They lost a couple guys at graduation. Alex Barnes goes to the NFL. Another very good running back has lost career with injury. I've never heard of a program not having any scholarship running backs. That has to be like, oh crap, what are we doing here? What do we got to put together to string this together? Yeah,
it was a kind of a shock to me when I did learn that, but that's the hand we were dealt. And we went with the grad transfer route a little bit, one with James Gilbert, and he was here for spring ball, and then another with Jordan Brown that just arrived here shortly after the 4th of July. And those guys at least have had some playing time at the Division I level. I'm excited about some of the guys we have. Harry Trotter, Tyler Burns. We have some older guys that just haven't had their opportunity yet. And then we restocked it with freshmen too, because you can't have all upperclassmen, but you couldn't have all freshmen either. So we have a pretty good balance. And we have great competition, and that brings out the best in everybody when you have that competition. And if you've looked at the track record of what Coach Mess did at NDSU with the last 2 national championship teams, we played 3, 4, 5, 6
Right.
running backs, and I really believe that you need to have multiple guys, not only as a skill set of playing running back, but a lot of those guys are going to run down on kickoff and make a tackle too.
Well, we have a thing here at Go PowerCat we do on our podcast called the Overtime, and people, it started years ago, people started asking ridiculous questions, and if the moon was made of cheese, would you eat it? Those types of questions. So I'm going to put you on the Overtime now.
Okay.
5 quick ones from a longtime poster at Go PowerCat, CFID.
Okay.
He doesn't spell it that way. That's how you pronounce it, Zach. It's CFID. I didn't know that. Coach Snyder was notorious for his late night Taco Bell runs. What's your go-to meal or place on late night leaving practice? Got to get food.
I'm so fortunate. My wife is a phenomenal cook, so she typically will have something in the refrigerator for me. And I'm not a fussy eater, so I don't have any late night. I'm not a fast food guy, but whatever that we can find. Sometimes it's just a sandwich, and sometimes it's a leftover steak or leftover meatloaf or whatever it may be.
That's typically the way I am. Coach Jim Harbaugh at Michigan recently said he thinks players should have 1 free transfer to be eligible the next year. There's so much talk about this transfer thing, the senior transfers. Where do you stand on this?
With the grad transfers, I think they've fulfilled their time. They should be able to be eligible somewhere else. That shouldn't be changed. I think the people that enter the transfer portal, I think everybody should sit a year, and I don't think one exception compared to another exception, because we've seen it this year already. Some kids appeal it and don't get it, and have the same case as some kids that appeal and do get it. And I know that Coach Fitzgerald at Northwestern, I was on a committee with him last year and had a pretty good thought of, if you transfer and you lose that year of eligibility, if you graduate, we'll give you the year back. But I think everybody should sit a year.
I kind of agree. What is a person from Waterloo called? A Waterloon or a Waterloonian?
They're just from the Lou.
From the Lou.
From the Lou.
I like that. We got a bar called the Lou here in Manhattan. Have you ever been to the John Deere Factory and Engine Museum?
I have. I've been to the factory, but never been to the museum. There's factories all over, but have not been to the museum.
I didn't. I see. I'm learning stuff here.
Okay.
I didn't even know that existed. You haven't been here a long time, but is there a favorite spot to go to on campus in someplace in Manhattan?
No. Once again, my wife and I are pretty simple people, and we stay at home and cook out an awful lot, and you can almost cook everything on the cement this summer. But I'm on the grill quite a bit, and
it's lovely grilling weather until the cool street.
Luckily, I can jump right into the pool or something afterwards. But we're pretty simple people. We like to cook at home and have a glass of wine and just relax.
Favorite sport other than football is?
Oh, baseball.
Baseball.
Yep. Yeah. I grew up playing baseball. I enjoy the college basketball game. Don't enjoy NBA as much, although I am a Celtics fan. But just baseball in general I enjoy.
And you got to go to the Royals game for K-State Day, but you didn't get to stay for the game, did you? You came back?
I stayed for just a few innings because we had some official visits that day. So it was quick in and out.
One extra question. You a golfer?
Yep.
Handicap?
I will tell you it's probably a 12, and sometimes I'll tell Mess he'll give me a couple extra strokes, but I can shoot anywhere from 78 to about 104. So golfing's a short season.
Golf. Yeah, especially up in North Dakota. You got beautiful courses, but you only got
really
so
short.
many months you can use.
It's really short.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you sitting in with us here in the studio and talking about your arrival at K-State. It's been really good. And welcome again to Manhattan, Kansas.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
That's it for the Power Chat this week. We will be back real soon with another edition of GoPowerCat.com's Power Chat.